Okay, well, good morning, everybody. My name's Ailsa Sutherland. I'm the co-chair of the Inspiring Talent Group at the Chamber of Commerce. And in my day job, I run an executive recruitment business. Thank you very much indeed for attending today's event. This event has been brought together by the Chamber's Inspiring Talent and Inspiring Communities Group. So you'll know, most of you, that in December, we asked the business community to submit their inspiring stories and to tell us of some of the incredible work that we know has taken place since lockdown 1 and 2 and 3. And through this event, we want to celebrate these stories and take a look at the lessons learned as we head into 2021. I was trying to think of a word for 2020, and I was thinking about it overnight, and I came up with tumultuous. And I think after the tumultuous events of 2020, today is all about celebration and looking forward. And we've had many members submit some incredible stories, and delighted to have most of you here today to join us in what we hope will be an informative and involved discussion. We've got 4 people from the submitted stories who are going to share a short kind of 3-minute overview of their story with us. But before we come to them, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to those of you who've submitted stories. So Napier University, the International Festival, Cyrenians, Balfour Beatty, and hello Michelle, it's lovely to see you on the call. Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home, Waverley Care, the COVID Response and Recovery Group, Edinburgh Remakery, Phoenix Group, Aberlour, Edinburgh Science, and Ellis Gin and a wee pedal cycle tour. So absolutely delighted to have had so much input, and thank you, most of you, for joining us today. So as I said, 4 of our contributors have agreed to give us an overview of their story and a bit about the journey that they went on. And we're going to hear from each of them and then return to a Q&A session, which my colleague Fiona McFarlane is going to chair. You there, Fiona? Yeah, so Fiona's going to take us through that. We should finish on the hour, and Joe Davidson from the Chamber is going to wrap things up for us. So thank you very much. I'm just going to very briefly introduce our speakers to you. Ali Kerr is the Senior Relationship Manager at Cyrenians, and their story is under the category of coming together. Ali's been at Cyrenians for about 5 years, but been in the third sector for about 30 years. Caroline Donald is with the Edinburgh International Festival. She's the Head of Learning and Engagement, and her category, their category for submission is COVID in the community. And Joe, I was just checking that you are a Joe, Joseph. Is that okay? You seem to be. Joe Drugan is Community Benefit Advisor for Balfour Beatty, and we've also got Michelle here from Balfour, and the category for their submission is Future Talent and Skills. And Joe's responsible for the delivery, reporting and achievement of community benefits on behalf of Balfour Beatty. And then we have Laura Leonard. Hi Laura, from the Edinburgh Science, nice to see you. Laura is the Development Officer, and the category for their story is Resilience in Real Time. Laura's been responsible for developing partnerships with charitable trusts, individuals and businesses to support the wide range of STEM projects that Edinburgh Science delivers. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you all. And as we move into the Q&A, please put things into the chat box if you would like, if you have questions, and we'll come to you once we get back to the Q&A plenary session. And if you could all just mute while the speakers are speaking, that would be fantastic. So Ali, I'm going to come to you first and see if we can get to you before your dog walker comes.
Oh, yes. They will just howl, but maybe we could do an audience participation where we all howl too, and that'll make me feel slightly better. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Yes, so just a very quick overview, I think, that you'd like of our story. For anyone that doesn't know us, and you will know our chief exec better, I think, Ewan, he's very active in the chamber. I do a very poor impersonation of Ewan, but for anyone who doesn't know us, Cyrenians is a charity which tackles the causes and consequences of homelessness. That in itself is a whole 5-hour chat, so I'll sit that there. There are many ways that we carry out that work around homelessness, directly and indirectly, over about 50 projects. But in the last year, one of the primary ways that we've done that is through the provision of good food, access to nutritious, food in a dignified way. At the beginning of COVID, which just feels like decades ago and 5 minutes ago, I don't know about you, like many organisations in the third sector, we were aware of two things. First of all, that people would need our support more than ever, and that we were going to have to adapt almost overnight the way that we worked in order to meet that increased demand and keep everybody safe, people that work with us and people that needed our support. We've been running Fair Share in Edinburgh for more than a decade. Fair Share is part of a national franchise to redistribute surplus food from retailers to those who need it. In 2019, we broke our own record. We were pleased about that, but it's also a terrible record to break. People shouldn't need to access food, so it's a double-edged sword. But we broke our own record and redistributed about 1,000 tonnes of food, which was about 1 million meals worth of food over the year. In 2020, in the second 9 months of that, we tripled that number and redistributed 3 million meals worth of food around Edinburgh and South East Scotland. Again, it's not a thing to be proud of, but it is a thing that we did well, and that's what we have to hold on to. In the past, the way that people have accessed that food is primarily by meeting up in a local community venue and sharing a meal, sharing company, or collecting food and having some interaction. And then COVID came along and that was impossible. We couldn't meet people and we couldn't get together. And so access to food and access to company became really compromised. So part of our adaptation was the creation of a new food production service. As part of our food education team, we overhauled our community kitchen, our cook school in Leith, which usually homes cooking skills courses, a thriving lunch club, and lots of pay it forward culinary events that people like myself who are privileged enough to have enough food and some money to spend can go and do a class and pay it forward. We repurposed that overnight, literally overnight, on the 24th of March 2020 to become a full-scale production kitchen. And so since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been cooking freezer-friendly meals in a space with the support of incredible volunteers, including furloughed chefs, students, community members, all of whom share our passion for ensuring people in our local community have dignified access. That's a really important word. I know all of you will understand. Dignified access to good food, tasty food, healthy food. And our inspiring story focused on one of the hundreds of volunteers who supported those efforts. And it's important to give some of that background context because there are so many of them. But we talked about Eloise, who was a student at Queen Margaret College, Queen Margaret University. My age there, I'm so sorry for anybody linked to QMU. It used to be a college, I'm so old, 30 years doing this job. Eloise is a student from QMU and she joined our team cooking, packing and delivering those ready meals last April because she was on a break from her studies, and like lots of people she wanted to be useful and purposeful, and that for all of our volunteers and staff also helped our own heads to be useful and lend a hand. Eloise was particularly interested in work tackling food poverty, learning about other long-term projects like our community pantries. And for anyone who doesn't know, and I have had to learn this myself, our community pantries are a place where people pay a very minimum subscription of £1 per 10 items. So for £1 a week, you can come along to one of those centres where you'd normally access food. And for £1, you can access fresh, chilled, ambient food that you can take home and make food yourself. So it's dignified in that you pay for it. You're not given a handout. You subscribe to something and you pay, but for food that otherwise would be unaffordable. So Eloise returned to university in August and she approached us at that point, said, I'm not working with you volunteering anymore, but would it be possible to start a community pantry at the university? Students traditionally experience quite high levels of food insecurity or food poverty. It's a very tricky thing. And, you know, people who go to university generally understand their own privilege and they're lucky to be there, but it doesn't mean it isn't a constant struggle to balance work and money and studies. So with support from the local co-op and our team at Fair Share, we were able to hit the ground running, and Eloise hosted the first Queen Margaret Student Pantry on the 28th of October last year. Within the first hour, over 20 students signed up. And remember that a lot of students weren't even on campus at that point. People hadn't returned, and those who had often come overseas and were really struggling with access to food and leaving the campus. So 28 people had signed up and shopped with her in the first hour, and each week more and more people turned up. I'll show you a quick picture of her in a minute. She now welcomes around 65 students until Christmas. She welcomed around 65 students to that pantry every week, and has inspired a lot of other students to get involved with our projects or with other projects, to volunteer anywhere, to feel purposeful and useful and part of a community. And thanks to Eloise, her fellow students now have access to a dignified shopping experience, whilst our food production team benefited hugely. And with Eloise's support and the support of other volunteers, we've given out over 100,000 ready meals produced in basically a garage in Leith. It's a very health and safety friendly garage, but yes, a garage in Leith. And I will just very quickly show you a picture of, oh, sorry, that's a picture of you. Hold on, here's a picture, if you can see it, of Eloise. Why is that not working? There she is. There's a picture of Eloise and her smiley face behind a mask. You can tell by her eyes that she's smiling. That's how we tell that nowadays. But this is the community pantry that she set up at QMU. Nothing about that, I hope you agree, looks undignified, dismal, or unwelcoming. It looks like you would want to go there, and that's exactly how all of us should shop, however much money we have and however much access to food. So a big thank you to Eloise, who can't hear me, but hopefully we've thanked her often enough and loud enough for her to know. And that's probably me. I think I've used up my time, Niels.
Thank you, Ali, very much indeed. That was extremely inspiring and multifaceted, if you think about the tiny little couple of sentences we had to describe what Serenians has actually done. I mean, really, you've done a lot, and although it's multifaceted, I think the underlying element of the dignified access to nutritious food in all of what you've said resonates very, very strongly. So thank you very much. I think
you're very welcome.
To Joe, if that's all right, Joe.
Absolutely, yeah, and thank you, Ali. That was really inspiring, funnily enough, as the title goes. So I enjoyed that. Thank you. So yeah, welcome. Thanks very much for everyone for giving me the time to speak this morning. My name's Joseph, and as Ailsa mentioned, I'm the community benefit lead for Balfour Beatty in Edinburgh and the Central Belt. So I'm going to share some slides with you. Just bear with me for 2 seconds whilst I share my screen. Because anything's better than looking at this mug, let's be honest with you. So bear with me for 2 seconds. I'll just try and find it. Okay. Okay. Sorry guys, there we go. Apologies for that. So yes, as I mentioned earlier on, so I am the community benefits lead for Balfour Beatty across our Edinburgh projects, and Balfour Beatty, one of the UK leading infrastructure companies. We are a huge employer, a huge part of the economy, working on a multitude of huge infrastructure projects, but that's something for people who have far loftier ambitions and aspirations than me to worry about. My role really, and what I'm passionate about, is supporting communities. I come from a kind of line of engineers and construction workers. My grandfather was the son of Irish immigrants to Glasgow who were both profoundly deaf, and he had to fight his way through the various barriers that were placed in front of him to gain his career in construction. And I think that sort of passion for the underdog almost has kind of been distilled in me. And it's really where my reason for being here this morning is to talk about some of the work that we've done to really try and support people to get their first footsteps into the industry, particularly those people who maybe have been underrepresented traditionally in the construction industry. So with that in mind, this is really focusing my work for the past few years with Balfour Beatty. It's been about trying to provide those pathways into the industry for young people and from people from underrepresented groups. And one of the most kind of effective ways in which we do that is through our work experience offer. We have multitude of programmes live across Edinburgh and Scotland. And what we really like to do is open the doors of those projects to get young people into them, to get enthused about their career within STEM and within construction. and also to get it gets their foot in the door, gets their faces known, and they can start to speak to us and to recruitment people about potential career pathways into the industry. But obviously, COVID came along and threw something of a spanner into the works, which meant we were unable to continue to do that. But we also understood that there's still, a huge amount of young people out there who want to, gain that experience, who are getting to that critical stage in their education, which only comes once when they're thinking about what topics they're going to choose and where their future career pathways are going to lie. So we were really keenly aware of this, and we didn't want any young people to miss out on those opportunities because of the COVID situation. So with that in mind, we developed an online work experience program. And we were really kind of keen to make this a quality programme. And when I say that, I'm not using the East End of Glasgow vernacular. I mean quality insofar as, that it's benchmarked against an industry standard. So this isn't a watered down version of what young people would get in a typical Balfour Beatty work experience programme. And we really kind of put a lot of effort into distilling that work experience programme that somebody would get on a site and as much as possible remotely. So what we've done here is distilled that into a 5-week programme where the young people were given opportunities to speak to Balfour Beatty engineers and staff from across the business to give them that kind of taste of the various different disciplines within the construction industry. So the screen that you can see here is one of the kind of best practice examples of the work experience. This is from a young girl called Victoria. And she basically, at the end of the project, we asked them to do a presentation to the Balfour Beatty staff, the community investment team, based on their 5-week experience. And so they'll highlight some of the various different things that they worked on. So as you can see here, this is Victoria's presentation, and her she's broken down the various different modules that she completed over the 5-week period. And over that 5-week period, there's over 30 hours worth of learning. So we were conscious to make this as flexible as possible, understanding that kids have got a vast curriculum these days. So we did a number of live sessions, but were also recorded so that kids could access them offline as well, and so they can work those 30 hours around their own curriculum. So as you can see here, Victoria's gone into some great detail about the various different aspects of the project and the various kind of things which she's picked up from the 5-week experience programme. Okay, share that on there. So at the end of the 5 weeks, we did a session on the careers and future pathways into the industry as well. So this is something that typically we would look to do in a construction project, for the young person to evaluate their experience over the 5 weeks, and to give them the option to maybe explore some of the career opportunities that are available through Balfour Beatty. So with every person who undertook the virtual work experience programme, they were given a platform to speak to one of the people involved in our recruitment process, and give, they had a live Q&A with them. They were able to share their best practice examples, and that these are the type of things which could well, that were active conversations at the minute with some of the pupils that participated in the project to explore their career options. So I'm conscious that I'm probably running out of time a wee bit. I do have a tendency to go on. But just to see here, I mean, these were some of the numbers that we were looking at. We had over 260 assignments. I think at the last we had 216 registered pupils on the project. So it was a great success as far as we were concerned, in terms of, yes, COVID did provide these limitations, but at least we were still able to get out there, and we developed this new resource which we're going to continue to roll out, which will hopefully enable young people not to miss out in all aspects of their education and that kind of work learning experience as well. So if anybody has any young people of their own who are interested in potentially getting involved in this, we're going to be launching the next work experience programme round about kind of mid to late February. So as you can see here, the community engagement email address and Twitter feed there. If anybody's interested, please drop us a wee line, or feel free to follow our account and keep that, and we'll keep the updates going there. And hopefully, you young people can participate and get the advantages of a virtual work experience with Balfour Beatty. So guys, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry if I did run on a wee bit, Ailsa, and I'll hand over.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Joe. That was really interesting, and it's amazing. You talk about the limitations of COVID, but actually the opportunities that it's presented for you to leap ahead with your technology in assessment of people is just phenomenal. And I'm sure it's very much in the title of what we're doing today. It's about looking forward into 2021 and beyond, and about learning in this community and what we can take from a Balfour Beatty into other organisations. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to go on now to Lauren, if that's okay. Laura, excuse me.
No problem. Yeah, can you hear me? Great, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So yeah, as mentioned, my name is Laura. I'm the Development Officer at Edinburgh Science. I've been at the charity for nearly 2 years now. So we're probably best known for organising the annual Edinburgh Science Festival, which normally takes place every April at the start of the festival calendar. And it normally comprises of over 250 exciting STEM workshops, talks, exhibitions, performances, and it takes place all over Edinburgh venues such as the National Museum of Scotland, the City Arts Centre and the Pleasance. And in a normal year, we try and reach up to 179,000 people, normally local Edinburgh residents. So lesser known is probably our learning and our community engagement programmes, which take place all throughout the year. So for example, we have our Generation Science programme, which is a programme of interactive STEM workshops, which we deliver in schools all over Scotland, and normally reach up to 50,000 young people, prioritising areas of disadvantage, as well as remote areas of the country, such as the Highlands and Islands. So what challenges did we face with the unexpected arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, we were a little over 2 weeks away from delivering our 2020 Edinburgh Science Festival when we were all plunged into lockdown, and we had to make the devastating decision to cancel our programme that we had spent a whole year planning. We also faced with the challenge of working from home. We were quite a small team, so that was a sort of challenge, getting used to working together from home and figuring that all out. So we sort of had a sort of decision to make whether to write off our efforts for 2020 festival altogether, or to all pull together and deliver something engaging and exciting for our audiences, many of whom obviously also found themselves stuck in lockdown, working from home, trying to look after children in the Easter holidays, and with the increased need for indoor learning and enjoyment. So despite all the difficulties of reworking and reimagining our physical festival that we spent a whole year planning, in a very short time frame, we chose to make a digital version of the festival. We did this by pooling our shared creative and science skills in our small but enthusiastic team, and we all worked together to deliver a really exciting online event, which included Facebook Live workshops and talks, downloadable resources, some audio clips, YouTube videos, arts and crafts, and a cyber skills live lessons workshop. With the closure of schools, we were also forced to make an equally heartbreaking decision to cancel the remainder of our Generation Science Schools programme. But thankfully, the majority of our supporters stuck by us, and we were able to produce some free and fun learning resources, which were downloaded over 11,000 times by families, not just across Scotland, but all over the UK and also Europe. We're also really aware that, of course, coronavirus is not the only crisis that we're currently facing at the moment. And Edinburgh Science is committed to tackling the global climate emergency, despite obviously the hurdles that we all face with working from home. So we organise a climate opportunity ideas factory, which has positioned us as leaders in Scotland's response to the climate emergency. And we bring together public and third sector organisations and businesses to create an action plan towards achieving national net zero targets. So through embracing video technology, we've been able to organise these meetings remotely and make collective progress towards achieving these net zero targets, and providing a forum for businesses to innovate during the pandemic and progress towards greener initiatives. We're also in discussion with various COP26 organising bodies who are well placed to make an important contribution to the wider programme of COP26 events in November. In terms of the lessons that we learned through the pandemic, there have been quite a few, but just to sort of boil them down a little bit, I think one of the main things that we've sort of gained is a refreshed urgency and passion for our work. Obviously, as a charity, it's important to sort of stay in touch and engaged with sort of the reasons why you're working so hard to deliver all the projects that you're delivering. And I think in particular, the pandemic has shown us that it's so important to be upskilling our young people, especially in terms of STEM skills. And it's just vitally important that we continue to inspire the next generation to take on the challenges of tomorrow and take up a career in STEM. We also rediscovered an appreciation for all our colleagues and learnt a lot of sort of skills that we didn't know our colleagues had by sort of us pulling together and creating something in a very short space of time. And yeah, it just showed us that it's really important to appreciate our colleagues and let them know that they are appreciated. I think we also learned about sort of digital upskilling and how important that is now within the workforce. We learned a lot about digital engagement as well. It's something that we weren't sort of necessarily experts in previously, but now we're sort of looking to really develop that aspect of our engagement work. And I think overall we sort of just gained a new confidence in our collective skills and our ability to adapt as an organisation, despite being small and despite facing lots of challenges. We were able to be flexible and innovative and deliver a lot of new content quickly without compromising on quality, and by working decisively together. So yeah, thank you for listening to me, and please feel free to ask me any questions in the Q&A or get in touch with me afterwards if you've got any questions about our work.
Thank you, Laura, very much indeed. I mean, we're 3 stories in and I'm completely moved and actually blown away by the vault. You know, this isn't one story that each of you are telling us. There's so many facets to it, and, you know, really pulling together to deliver what you've delivered in the Science Festival is a real example of resilience in real time, which was your heading, Laura. So thank you for being on point. I'm not sure if we have Caroline on the line. There is a mobile number that might be you, Caroline. Is it? So I'm not sure if Caroline has joined us. I'm also aware that we want to give ourselves lots of time for questions and for some more sharing of some of the fantastic stories that we've had. So I'm assuming that that's not Caroline, Harriet. So I'm afraid we don't have our story then from the festival, but it was a COVID in the community heading. And it was all around one of the specific projects, again, multifaceted, that they had managed to deliver. And we do have a long list of the stories. I think that could come out to you all with an overview in due course, but we'll go by that for now. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Fiona, who's going to chair the Q&A. So please populate the chat box as much as you like. Otherwise, just come off mute, put your hand up. I think there's a small enough number of us we can navigate. So Fiona, over to you.
Yeah, bit blown away. So I'm kind of sitting here going, wow. We knew we were inspiring talent and inspiring communities. And I think talent and communities have definitely come out in the 3 stories that we've had. Resilience, collaboration, and the unprecedented times we lived in. Everyone seems to have stepped up. But it's the speed of response, I think, that really gets me. That, you know, a lot's been said about pivoting businesses, and every single one of the case studies we got was very, very much about how businesses pivoted in such a quick time and collaborated with one another. I think in terms of the community, because we haven't had, we didn't get that story, I was wondering whether maybe Biddy could come on the line, if Biddy's here. I think she is. Or I'm sure I saw her. Is Biddy not here? Gosh. Because the North Edinburgh COVID response was another one. My role pivoted quite early on, and I think I'll probably ask Grant to have a wee word, because Grant did collaborate with Cyrenians as well. So not only was Cyrenians working at making sure people had a dignified access to food, it went much further than that. And over the course of the pandemic, I would say my role pivoted very much from being a consultant to being a non-exec director, as each of the organisations I was a non-exec director of had to put in so much extra effort. And one of these was Waverley Care. And I saw firsthand what happened between Cyrenians and Waverley Care. So if Grant would like to come up and just kind of show a different viewpoint and show that Cyrenians were fighting on more than one battlefront, so to speak.
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, so I'm Grant Sugden. I'm the Chief Exec of Waverley Care. And so Waverley Care is Scotland's HIV, Hep C and sexual health charity. And we've been working in Edinburgh since we were founded back in 1989. And at that stage, we were really about providing end-of-life care to deal with the HIV crisis in Edinburgh at that time. We now work across the whole of Scotland, doing a lot of work around prevention, testing, but also supporting people living with HIV and hepatitis C. Some of you may know we have a residential service on the south side of Edinburgh called Milestone, which was the UK's first purpose-built hospice, but has evolved into providing kind of shorter term stays for people with HIV and hepatitis C. But since the advent of COVID last March, we have been providing a very different service. So because a lot of our service users are having to shield, we stepped up very quickly to provide sort of very intensive support to Edinburgh's homeless population. And that was really a partnership with the NHS and both primary and secondary care and with drug services, but also with Cyrenians. The original kind of idea was a concern that homeless people were going to get COVID and they would need to find somewhere for them to go from hospital. In reality, it hasn't actually been homeless people with COVID, but it's been over 45 homeless people who've had a whole range of very complex health issues, and we have been able to get them out of hospital quicker and care for them in Milestone, and then through the support of Cyrenians, move them on to much more kind of positive destinations. It's been a hugely challenging piece of work. We've needed a lot of kind of clinical support from nurses coming in, from a GP that's been working with us. All the service users have had a whole range of kind of health issues, often addiction, sort of history of homelessness over many years. We've worked closely with Cyrenians to help the individuals kind of move on to suitable accommodation, and that's been challenging at times, and people have stayed longer than we thought they might have. But I suppose for me, one of the kind of the key bits of learning was actually how quickly we can get things set up in a crisis. You know, having worked with kind of the NHS and other public organisations for many years, often things can take quite a long time to get going. And I think actually this new service happened in a matter of weeks. All our staff were really up for it. Other agencies were too. I think there was a kind of willingness to take risks and learn as we went along. So I think it's been a fantastic kind of example of what we can do in a crisis to help some of the most kind of vulnerable. Yeah.
No, I think it's been fascinating to watch that one from the sidelines and see how the staff really upped to a level that we didn't think was possible, because they already operated at such a high level of devotion really to their job, and they actually even excelled that. I think one thing as a complete opposite, and I think one that kind of chimed with me, was actually Leanne's story. So Leanne, are you willing to share your A Wee Pedal story? Because that's like the other end of the spectrum really, but still doing almost exactly the same thing, plugging a gap that had existed.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me here. Yeah, I started A Wee Pedal as purely cycle tours back in April 19 as a small startup. And it really was just for tourists North American and Chinese were the biggest clientele. And then, of course, COVID hit in March and my diary emptied overnight. But then I thought about ways of how to feel purposeful, and you know, you needed to feel part of this massive jigsaw. So I lent out my fleet of bikes to key workers and started servicing key workers' bikes for free. And then I saw another gap, that there was lots of mainly women in families starting to cycle during lockdown, which was amazing. And it was so heartwarming to see. And when the traffic came back, they were scared to cycle back on the roads again. So I started doing confidence rides and well-being rides for mainly women. And I hate to stereotype, but it was mainly women that were contacting me. So I was taking them out on roads, teaching them how to cycle with traffic, and taking them to quiet nature reserves for a sort of quiet the mind, calming cycle ride, which we're not riding, we're really just turning the pedals quietly and calmly. And the uptake was quite surprisingly huge. And then that snowballed into doing women's bike maintenance classes. When a lot of them wanted to ride their bike, they were maybe a little bit apprehensive about breaking down. So I would set up these 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 cycle maintenance classes. A lot of them I just gave for free. You know, I was giving out bikes and bike rides for families that didn't have their own bike. I just thought it was a way of trying to help the Edinburgh locals by keeping active. If they didn't have the means, that's okay. I would just come along and show them routes around Edinburgh, use my bikes, that's fine. If they can afford to donate something, great. If they can't, that's okay too. I work in collaboration with Bridgend Farmhouse, which is at the bottom end of Craigmillar. So it's EH 16 and 17, quite vulnerable families living there. So I was trying to just get families out around Edinburgh to keep active. So that's what I'm still trying to do now. You know, I have lots of potential bookings for the season, but who knows what will happen. So I just feel as long as I can operate in some capacity, hoping that when it's all over, I can start running tours again and do corporate mind, you know, well-being, mindfulness tours is what I was set up for. So yeah, hopefully.
I think, my goodness, this is turning into the hardest job because I keep getting lumps in my throat. So it's like, this is really, really difficult to hold this together, because it's the generosity, as Liz says in the comments, the generosity of the people of Edinburgh actually is incredible. And I think what's really I'm finding from this session is we've had so much negativity over the last year that all this positivity is almost too much because we've had so much negativity. I've been part of Inspiring Talent since it started. It's about 6 years and it's gone by in a flash. I have to say the last year does seem to have gone by even faster. And one of the things that I really noticed was, you know, this time last year we were discussing all the opportunities in Edinburgh were in hospitality and tourism, and talk about having to pivot a group thought process that's taken time to develop and identified that is the area we work in, to one where the bottom falls out of that. And I think Napier have actually been working on something which has really helped in terms of thinking about the young people. There's been a lot about the young people and how do we maintain the young people's development? Why do we not find that the last year has been a complete disaster? And I think we've got Miles. Is Miles somewhere handy? Can Miles appear? I can see Fiona, but I think
I can appear. Wasn't expecting to appear.
Excellent.
Hello. Good morning.
No, it'd be really good, Miles, your project about getting young people onto boards, given that I know personally, you know, the need for board members to step up in the last year has been great, and we need diversity on boards, and you've been working on that.
Yeah, we've been working on this for many years now. So it started 6 or 7 years ago at Napier, and we supported 20 students to get onto charitable boards in Edinburgh and the Lothians. And then about 3 years ago, Santander and RSM, had a conversation with us, said, oh, we like what you're doing, and can we build that up as a programme in the whole of Scotland? And then we would later join with Inspiring Scotland and Anderson Strathern. And now we have a programme across 7 or 8 universities supporting whoever wants to find out about the vibrant and wonderful third sector. So that's one of our goals. And then one of the things that we created at Napier for our research is a bronze, silver, gold, like a Duke of Edinburgh awards scheme. So bronze, you find out about the third sector, you find out about what a trustee is, and then silver, you get some experience around being a trustee on a board, and then gold is obviously being on the board. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's what it simply means. And we've had around 200 people part of that program across the Central Belt, and obviously COVID hit, and we thought, what should we do now? And then we took it all online, and now we've made all our resources that we've created free and open to everybody.
That's really super. It's exactly the sort of skills that are required, and I know that just being aware of that existing now has gone into my mind as something that I will probably be drawing upon. So don't be surprised if you hear from me in the future.
Wonderful.
The other thing, I was really interested about anything that gin can do, anything that gin, repurposing gin, as long as it's not for hand wash, because I think we've had enough of gin as hand wash. But Ella's gin took a different approach.
Yeah, Fiona, that's me, Carol here. So thank you for that, and some really inspiring stories that hopefully gin has helped people along this very difficult journey. But yeah, we're actually a Glasgow-based company, and we produce a range of naturally coloured and flavoured gins. And our aim has always been to bring a bit of fun to the gin market, with 2 of our gins changing colour when mixer is added, and we've got a lovely shimmer. So you can imagine in March, all of our revenue, or 95% of our revenue, just stopped overnight, because we mainly supply into hospitality, or we do face-to-face events. So what we did very quickly is we replaced those face-to-face events with virtual gin tastings. So you can imagine being on a Zoom like this, but you've got gin in front of you, and you're able to go in and taste the gin, and then just have some real fun with it. And what that really did was it meant that people stayed social, because obviously people were, there was that reclusive stage that we all had gone through. But it was the ability for people to stay social and still, participate with friends and family. And we did that mainly with local charities, because recognising that charities at that time, it was so difficult for them to generate any funds. So we raised over 10k for local hospices during the first lockdown, which was really, really good. And I guess another thing that we did, one of our plans for last year was to introduce our most recent flavour, which was our lemon gin. And our plan was to introduce it in May. Obviously that couldn't happen, but what we did instead is we ran a crowdfunding campaign. We pre-sold the first batch of our lemon gin, and we were able to donate 10% of everything that we raised to the NHS Together charity. So again, just giving a little bit back. So yeah, it's been a bit daunting. I think the key is mindset, and just making sure that you're looking to see what opportunities are out there, not just what barriers are out there. And that's really what's kept us going. Getting in front of the camera. I know everybody's scared about it, but we've done loads of Facebook Lives. We've built our social media following now. We've got over 10,000 followers, which is not easy, may I add. And we've really participated a lot in the cocktail market, and that at home cocktail making that is really popular. So yeah, so it's been an interesting journey, and I'm really excited about what 2021 will bring, but obviously very conscious and sympathetic to the hospitality industry right now. Need to be really cautious around when we start talking to our existing and new customers again in that space.
It's just, it's the range of stories here that are coming. And I think Liz, if nothing else, is going away with an action for the Chamber to say we've really got to publicise this much broader. And all the comments are saying, you know, inspiring. It is inspiring. We've always used inspiring and thought inspiring is fine. I think today's the first day that it's really kind of hit home about just the inspiring talent and the inspiring community that we live in, which is just amazing. Elaine Brown at the Remakery, you've got a story as well, because you're another one who is really working on resilience and pivoting, but also working right at the heart of the community. I'm trying to find you. Are you there? Yes, there you are, Elaine.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, again, just totally resonates with me, the stories that we've heard today, and it's just amazing, the resilience and challenges that we've all faced, but it's also shown that our services have never been more needed, and the third sector is just such a valuable resource. And work in collaboration with businesses, etc., is the way to go. So yeah, the Edinburgh Remakery been a challenge to ride the COVID storm, but in a way we've been best placed to deal with it, and we've pivoted our model to really during COVID do nothing but help those that were facing digital isolation. So our refurbished IT equipment. We remained behind the scenes during COVID and refurbished hundreds and hundreds of laptops and PC systems, and then we gifted those to well over 30 organisations and many more individuals that were requiring IT to either still engage with the services of organisations that they might be aligned to. They might be working with charities already, but a lot of their services were moved online. Their clients didn't have IT, so therefore we provided that IT. And also it really strengthened our collaboration with businesses, because in order to be able to donate laptops and PCs, we needed to have that those equipment in stock to do. So we put out a big call and pivoted to create our IT disposal service for business. And suddenly our collaborations with businesses all over Edinburgh just blossomed. Businesses wanted to help people, wanted to see that social value and that impact straight away. And also they wanted to help the planet. They wanted to make sure that their equipment wasn't going to landfill or wasn't just being stocked up in cupboards. So they started working with us. It was a free service. They got all their data wiped and notice of the CO2 emissions that they'd saved, etc. So that complied with their legislation requirements. But instantly they were involved with helping people in the community in a direct way. So it was just fantastic, and it really did make all our hearts sing when we could see the joy that we were bringing. And we've just latterly been involved in the initiative Leith Gives over Christmas, where over 20 organisations in Leith banded together at very short notice to provide food hampers, gifts and toys, and we were involved in giving laptops to people in Leith who were facing a very bleak Christmas, but suddenly they had a wonderful Christmas where they could connect with loved ones through their IT and have lovely meal and gifts. So lots of good going on, but the challenges are still ahead, because as a social enterprise, we're not back up and running, as I'm sure a lot of my fellow third sector colleagues here would testify. Our income streams are not back up to what they were. We're going to be relying on funding and collaborations for quite a bit of time yet, and that's maybe no bad thing, because we've learnt lots of lessons and can do lots of good things. So Edinburgh Remakery is open to collaborating like Billy O in 2021, and really a big shout out to my fellow colleagues here. You're all amazing. We've done great things, and I'm sure we'll continue to do great things in 2021. Thank you.
I think on that note, with that case study and improving people's Christmas and everything, I think that's quite a good case study to finish on. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask anyone that's spoken up till now before we hand over to Joe to do the vote of thanks?
Fiona, I just had one quick question, because I've been reading with intrigue the very short submission that I've got on my page from the Edinburgh Cat and Dog Home. And Jamie, I wondered if you might give us just a quick couple of minutes on the food bank, or the pause pantry, as you called it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm aware we've not got a lot of time, so I'll try and keep it really quick. And just to say, also really inspired with some of the stories and the variety and creativity, you know, of a lot of the people on the call. Yeah, obviously, like a lot of you guys, it's been a really difficult sort of 12 months or so. But to focus on our Pause Pantry food bank, we launched that in October 2019. And the idea was to support dog owners and cat owners in the local community and try and keep, you know, their loved pets with them rather than having to come to us. Because often we see, you know, the hardest decisions people have to make with their pets. So we launched that in October 2019 with no kind of idea of what 2020 would bring, and you know, hoping that it'd be a real help for people. And the demand obviously was quite considerable going into 2020. When we came up to kind of the year, you know, October 2020, and it'd been a year of the Pause Pantry, we decided, although, you know, we were helping a lot of people and working with a number of different charities, we wanted to help more people and make it more accessible. So obviously, being in Seafield, you know, near Leith, near Portobello, a lot of people can come to us, and we work with a lot of charities, but we wanted to kind of increase the reach of that project. So with a number of contacts, one of which actually was Serenians, we have reached out and connected with a number of different food banks and different food bank charities, all the way down from small pantries, you know, community pantries, all the way up to, you know, larger food banks across the southeast of Edinburgh. And through that, and through the support of volunteers and the team here at the home, we've now helped 1,100 pets in sort of 3 or 4 months since that year anniversary, and are now working with, I think, 36 different food banks in the southeast of Edinburgh, which has been absolutely fantastic. And that's kind of been supported as well by other charities. Amazon, we got in touch with their charity department, and they're now donating on a weekly basis. We're also working with the Cat Clinic, which is our veterinary practice in Edinburgh, who are now donating on a monthly basis, and kind of supporting that project. So we went from obviously offering it on our home to expanding that out to the whole southeast of Scotland. And, you know, the demand has been, it's great that we can help that many people, but obviously it's quite, it's scary to see how many people are in need at the moment, which I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to. And we're now looking at how we can expand that even further, you know, for the remainder of 2021. But yeah, it's been great. As I think Ali said, it's great to help so many people, but also it's kind of, it brings you back down to earth to see how many people are in need as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one message that has been going out with the fact that dog ownership has gone up with lockdown, and the actual cost of owning a dog, you know, it's a huge commitment. Someone said to me it's as expensive as having children. I can't believe that for the start, but you know, it must be on a par sometimes, and big dogs take a lot of feeding. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and the demand's gone up, you know, significantly for people, you know, because everyone's had a change of circumstances, a lot of people working from home and things as well. So the demand for dogs has gone up significantly, and we've seen that as well. When we can rehome, and we've had to kind of roll with the punches a little bit with the lockdown restrictions. So at the moment we can't rehome. But we're also trying to, along with the food bank, our plan for 2021 is to tie in our education programme around that as well, to, you know, support owners who are in need, but support potentially new owners, so that they understand the commitments that are involved, and, you know, we can encourage responsible pet ownership as well.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. Well, I'm absolutely delighted now, because I am getting really choked, to hand over to Joanna to finish off this session. I am just completely blown away with these stories, and we have to get these stories out there. And so I'm sure Ailsa and Ewan, with the two on the two committees, will make sure that we do move heaven and earth to make sure that people know that all this positivity has been happening in our city. But over to Jo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I know that you said at the start that you thought you had the hardest job in speaking through the choke throat, but I would challenge you for that position, frankly, because I honestly don't know how I can possibly adequately sum up everything that we've heard over the course of the last hour. And that has been summed up as we've gone so ably by Ailsa and Fiona, except to say that, you know, we build this event today as celebrating Edinburgh's inspiring stories. And I'm sure we would all agree on the call today that that's exactly what we've heard this morning, and hopefully what we've managed to do. We all know the pandemic's been incredibly tough. It's been tough on everyone individually, but at the Chamber, we know especially how tough it has been on our organisations, and that's across all sectors. No sector has escaped the impact of this. Throughout the pandemic, we at the Chamber have been continually inspired and amazed at what we know our organisations have done and continue to do, both in terms of the resilience and the ability to adapt, that I think has been very ably demonstrated today, but also about how they've contributed to the community that we all live in, and have stepped up when the situation has demanded it, which we've seen time and time again. And I think that's particularly remarkable in the face of the challenges that we know that you as organisations across all sectors are facing yourselves, and some of those have been touched on today, particularly in relation to the third sector and some of the challenges that you are facing. So it's incredibly inspiring and humbling. And I know we all feel that today taking part in this event. Can I thank a number of people who've really been instrumental in delivering the event today. Firstly, can I thank the members of the Inspiring Talent and Communities group for pulling today together, for coming up with the concept, and for doing all the work to pull what has been a great event together. So thank you to you. Can I also, and I want to add to Ailsa's thanks, I know she thanked everyone at the start, but can I thank everyone who submitted their stories? I know we've showcased only a small number today, but as Ailsa said, the range and number that we received was truly inspiring and also hugely encouraging, and gives us a lot of hope, I think, for the future as we hopefully move through and out of the current situation and on to better days ahead. Can I also thank our excellent chair Ailsa and her wonderful assistant Fiona, who both massively steered us through proceedings this morning, and have also both frankly been instrumental in organising today's event and pulling it together alongside the Chamber team. Rebecca and Harriet, thank you all to you. But special thanks obviously have to go to our superb panellists, so Ali, Jo and Laura, and also those that stepped up at the last one and fed into the Q&A, Grant, Leanne, Jamie, Elaine, Carolyn, Miles. What you've shared with us today will live with us and stay with us, and thank you so much for not just your submission but the time that you've taken today and coming and sharing those inspiring stories with us all. Finally, a plug, if I may. You would expect no less, I'm sure, but obviously we at the Chamber, we do our annual awards every year, and we're not able to do those this year in the way that we normally have with 500 people at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. We are, however, still doing them because we do still feel that despite the challenges we face, what we've heard today surely has underlined the fact that there is still much to celebrate, we believe, in the business community. So we want to still do that. I know there's been a lot of talk in the chat about publicising stories and making people aware of what it is that we're doing. One great way that you can do that is to submit for one of our awards. We do have a number of awards with various different categories. There is one that particularly talks about partnerships and impact on the community. A lot of worthy contenders in that today. So please submit to the awards. The submission date is the 4th of February. And you can, or the closing date, sorry, is the 4th of February. You can submit at the Edinburgh Chamber's website, which is edinburghchamber.co.uk, on the awards page there, so please do that. And finally, can I thank all of you for your attendance today, for your contribution, for your engagement, which has been incredible to see. We really do hope that we've succeeded in our aim of inspiring you. And we hope, as we've said in the chat, that you'll continue to share your stories with us so that we can platform and showcase those, and really show the incredible work that our business communities and third sector organisations are delivering on behalf of our city. So thank you all so much, and we'll hopefully see you at a Chamber event at some time soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.